Hello everyone and welcome to this evening's webinar, How to Pitch Your Story to a National Current Affairs Program. That program of course being The Wire, independent news and current affairs, weekdays on community radio. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Our next webinar after this evening's webinar will be on the 2nd of May, Safe Stations, what you need to know about preventing sexual harassment. Timely webinar, no doubt. It's going to be brought to us with the assistance of the Victorian Trades Hall, who do some absolutely fantastic work there. Registration for that webinar is available on the CBAA website, and there's also some resources there that you can access to that will be of assistance at your station, including a guide on how to know your station's obligations and some great resources from the Victorian Trade Halls about stopping gendered violence at work. Also, while I've got your attention, 2018 CBAA Conference, save the date, 8th to 10th of November 2018. I'm already getting my jokes written for it. So far, none of them are any good, but, you know, at least I'm having a go. So, yeah, that's the CBAA Conference 2018. I don't know what numbered conference this is going to be for me, like 20 or something like that. Maybe I'll do it right this time. This evening's webinar, How to Pitch Your Story to a National Current Affairs Program, presented by Annie Haswell, Sarah Martin from The Wire. Independent news and current affairs, an absolutely wonderful, wonderful radio program. In this webinar, we're going to learn about The Wire, what it is, what it does, why it's the premier news and current affairs radio program in the sector. We're going to learn about the difference between news and current affairs, find out how to submit an idea for a story, get tips on how to pitch to a national current affairs show, and find out how you can become a regular correspondent on The Wire. The Wire, of course, is produced in partnership by 2SER, Radio Adelaide, 4EB. They're in Brisbane with contributor stations from Karma and RTR, plus heaps of other people being involved. But don't just take my word for it. Why not take the word of our wonderful presenters for this evening from Radio Adelaide, Sarah and Annie. Do you read me?
We do, Roger.
Hi, Danny. It's Sarah Martin speaking.
And Annie Haswell.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just giving you guys the screen. And
should be able.
There we go. It's all yours. I'm going to mute myself. The floor is yours, and I will be here taking. And remember, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box, and I will catalogue those. Take it away.
Great. Well, doing this tonight is we're actually calling out to everybody in Australia in community radio to get involved in The Wire because, as you know, we have very intense newsrooms in 3 cities that produce The Wire, generally journalism students in each city, but we are kind of hoping to get a more eclectic bunch of people involved, and it is possible to be a freelancer, a stringer, whatever you want to call it, for The Wire. So just going to have a quick listen to the show first, if you don't know it. Just want to, before we play a bit, I want to point out that we're trying to tell people stories that matter, and because we've got half an hour to do it, we want them to stay with us. So we try to, right up front in the show, get some of those voices, some of those stories there, so they think, oh, okay, that's interesting, I'll listen to that. So we're just going to have a listen to a couple of program intros to get the feel of it.
Looking back at the data, which is from 1980 to 2015, there are already people moving because of climate change.
How climate change is moving the world's population around, and
gone through a bit of a rough patch, and I was in a bit of a rut, and when I came with another vendor to the big issue 3 years ago, it opened up my eyes.
This week, those hardy street corner sellers of the big issue have a special week in their honour. Hello and welcome to The Wire, current affairs across Australia on community and Indigenous radio. I'm Annie Haswell in Adelaide. And we'll just have a listen to a Sydney program too to get that feel of getting the raising eyebrows.
Sorry, we still got to let that one.
Firm on the cashless welfare issue.
Pass itself through.
Stay with us for the next half hour on The Wire.
Hello and welcome to The Wire, independent coverage of current affairs on your local community radio station. I'm Roderick Chambers. Coming up on The Wire today,
I think the next election is actually up for grabs, to be honest, and Malcolm Turnbull could win it.
30 bad news polls was the criteria for a change in leader, according to Malcolm Turnbull when he rolled Tony Abbott, but he now regrets saying this. Also on the show, we have a look at what hotel rooms we might find.
Okay. So that's basically how we hopefully get people in. So, Sarah, I'll hand over to Sarah to talk about what we're all about.
Okay, basically the Wire, we want to advance public debate. So we want to bring our audience something that's new and useful. As you know, we're community radio, we're not mainstream media, so we get access to different things and different ideas that perhaps other people aren't thinking about, and we try and bring that to the fore. We're independent, so we're not having to be attached to sponsors or any kind of influencers, so we can speak up, I guess. We think that we bring those issues that matter to a national audience, and it's a very diverse audience. You think cities perhaps, but you may be from a station in a regional area, but you almost also can guarantee that there's someone riding a tractor sitting there having a listen to The Wire at the end of the day, or perhaps podcasting it. So we need to think about all of these audiences when we're creating the stories. We're also making sure we cover off key developments in issues around the environment, education, social justice, global politics and the arts. And they're a key factor that we sort of categorise by in our website. So you can check that one out.
Now, we like to not talk to the talking heads if possible. There's a lot of pressure putting a show together, but you hear the same voices on the same topics in any given day, no matter where you switch your radio dial to. We do try to find real people, and luckily community radio is good in that way, because you can often work through people to find someone that is affected by decisions. And that's the second part of that, is we're looking for people that don't get to have a say, that people who are affected by things like the cashless welfare card, for example, but we don't hear their voices. So we look for people, particularly women, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and poor people, to hear what they have to say.
Questioning and challenging the views of those in power is something that journalists, I guess, are meant to do all of the time. And for us, it's important that we do push back and make sure we go, why is this happening? Why are these decisions being made on our behalf, and get to the base of it? We don't like to get caught up in gossip. So identity politics is not our thing. We want to focus on the issue and not the person. And we try and keep it simple. So people might have, when we're covering a science topic, it can get a little confusing. Sometimes the general jargon of another topic, politics, can be something that's a little bit confusing. So we try and break through that and actually translate it so that our audience can have a listen and actually get to the base of the story.
And of course, we have to abide by the community radio codes of practice. Now, if you don't know them, we'll just quickly show them to you, but they're there for anyone to access. Not actually that easily. There they are. You can read them for yourself. And they sound very dry, but, they're all part of the manifesto. And I guess the baseline is that we've got to do all that. And then we've also got to not sound too worthy and boring, because we are dealing with topics that are worthy and could be boring. So our challenge is to make it engaging, interesting, and make people stay with us for the duration of the program.
So The Wire isn't news, and you've come here to find out the difference between what is news and current affairs. So the news, will hear news of a shark attack, and I'll tell you that the shark attack happened when? Today, this afternoon, where? Your local beach, Glenelg, who, a young lad, 13 years old, surfing out beyond the breakers. How? Any old gory details that, I guess, gets people's attention. While that is important to get that news out immediately and on the day, that isn't what we're interested in.
No, we're about current affairs. So we're about the implications, the consequences, the arguments around something happening. And the people that we talk to are experts, families, locals, try to get to the bottom of things. And it's great because it gives us a great latitude to cover perhaps an issue that isn't necessarily always in the news, but we can explore any kind of development around that. So in the case of the shark attack, which is the classic news story, some of these things would probably come a day or so later out of respect for the victim, but inevitably for a week the argument will rage. Should we cull, should we use devices? If you've got access to somebody who has been in a shark attack before, that's the classic kind of thing. You would chase down someone who was attacked years ago and talk about what the experience was like for them. You'll inevitably have arguments about whether beaches should be closed, whether there should have been signs up, history of attacks in Australia, how often do they happen, and then there'll be the comparison with road deaths and so forth. So yeah, it's really interesting where you can go with current affairs. There's really no limit. It's all about your imagination, taking an issue and just thinking how to find some interesting angle on it, and then delve around till you find some amazing person to talk to on that angle.
when the show goes to air, essentially you've heard the grabs at the top of the show. So we take a 10-second snippet from some interesting audio to get your attention, get people listening and waiting for that story to roll out a little later. Generally, there's 4 to 5 stories. 2 are of the day. So back to the shark attack, like Annie said, perhaps we wouldn't have jumped on it on that particular day, but if a development happens in politics, we might pick up on that and try and dig in and find out the nuances of it. The others are, we always report on one Indigenous story and one international story on any given day. We create links with music stings just so that it shakes it up and changes the pace and makes it sort of sound a bit poppy and interesting and keeps people attended. And also we use many different voices. So as many different voices, accents, backgrounds, ages, all of this brings texture and interest to The Wire across the show. Live interviews are essential where possible. Speaking to somebody from somebody, whether you're out on location or you're in a studio, there's a different warmth, there's a different value to that voice that you try as you might. It's hard to achieve that on the phone. Phones work, but live is the best. Music and sound effects also add colour. This is something that we generally have people who come into our teams, they develop those skills and bring that in after months of contributing. So it's not something we're expecting anyone to jump into straight away, but it certainly is something that can be developed towards.
And all of those things like having live voices, particularly, and then many different voices is a reason why we really invite people who have ideas to get in touch with us.
Okay, you're staying with me for a moment because I'm going to take you for a little trip around our website.
Because Sarah's had a lot to do with this. So, baby.
So the Wire website, I hope a lot of you have visited it. If you haven't, become a regular. When you come to our page, you'll find this first area here is our latest program. So the carousel comes through with the latest stories that have been reported. Our team's been working on this in Adelaide today, so this has only been up for the last 45 minutes or so. And when you click on any of these stories, you go through to the detail. You can listen to the audio, read a little bit about it, link out to different areas of interest. I guess from something I really want to bring your attention to is we have a really deep archive of The Wire. So if you're looking to sort of follow up on it, if you're looking for into an issue, you can come in here and you can search for it. So if you click on the search here and you might do health, you can have a look through and it will come up with a whole heap of different issues related to health that we've been reporting on since 2004. So there is a huge wealth of not only information, but contacts, relevant things to dig into. Across the top here, we've got different categories. So I was talking to you before about how we really pay attention to sort of key interests, communications and culture, science and environment. Social justice is a huge issue for us. And I guess on community radio, that's a thing that we have a real access to, is speaking to two people from really broad and different communities and giving their voices a place. So this is really fantastic. You'll note at the top here, have a look here, got an idea for a story? We'd love you all to use this form. We'd also, so fill it in, send it through if you've got an idea, but beyond that, hit the contact button and give us a shout. So you can get the details of all of the producers for the shows in your state or in the 3 states that do produce it. And you've got our contact details, emails, everything like that. So this is where you can easily get in contact with us.
Sarah, can we just have a look at the series as well?
Oh yeah, hang on. We recently did a series on...
We do regular series, which is something that might interest some people who want to contribute to the show, because I know often people have got a series of ideas that they could link together.
So we recently did Arts with a Message throughout the Adelaide Fringe Festival, and we did a whole series that sort of looked at different elements of the arts and I guess how artists are approaching it and really communicating with that audience and thinking about different issues.
And then last year we did a mental health series, which similarly tried to take different angles on mental health and took the particular angle that mental health could be something that you could get around without drugs. And we talked on different aspects of it. So that's up there as well. So yeah, we like doing series every now and then because it's a chance to really dig in, and it gives everybody who works on the program a chance to really increase their skills by working over a number of days rather than just reacting to what's happening that day.
You can subscribe to podcasts through the Wire website, so that's a really straightforward process. But you can also join our mailing list. So at the end of every show, we send out an email with links to all of the stories that we've produced that day. So by all means, sign up and you'll get a nice little package of The Wire delivered to you every afternoon, which is really lovely. I'm going to leave it there. Please explore, and if you've got any queries about it, you can give us a shout.
Okay, so I just want to, if you are contributing to The Wire from somewhere else, just to give you a feel for what happens in Sydney, in Adelaide and in Brisbane with our little band of generally journalism students, not always. We always start the day with an editorial meeting in the morning. Everybody's sent off to chase a story. They're meant to bring ideas to the meeting, of course, and get their interviews done. We place a really high priority on the ability to chase a story, not to give up after the first phone call or after the first person says no, because basically once they've got a story that they've said they're going to do, we expect to get it by the end of the day. They do the interviews, edit and work out how to present the story, where you might have three voices in it, which voice is going to have the most impact to begin it. Write a cue sheet for the presenter, which clearly puts you in the third person if your story is being presented by someone else. And there's a fair bit of post-production. We've still got a few people upstairs right now, I think, finishing off posting onto the web and getting out on social media, which is one of the key ways that we spread ourselves around apart from podcasts these days. So that's what's happening in the city. And we're wanting to work out, Sarah, you can go on with this, how you would fit into that picture, because you're not here with us in the newsroom.
Yeah, so we think that it's important to get those voices, as Annie said before, understanding what is going on in different areas of the country. We can't transport ourselves there from our newsroom, so we love to get those voices and that first-person experience. So we're interested in local stories that have national implications. So if there's something going on if you're in a small town that really you think could be happening in every small town across the country and something people really want to know and feel connected to. We do art stories about artists who have produced art within a local town who might be not feeling like they've got a cohort out there, but they hear it on our show, and then people realise that they're part of a wider community. It's that reach, it's that opportunity to talk to the broader audience. We have contributors of all ages and from all places, and we're keen to continue to do that, bring up the diversity. You can go and speak to people in your town, in your city, and you can get those voices for us. So it's important to us that we start thinking beyond the newsrooms that we've got and start getting those contributions from around the network. We have this amazing, big, huge, wide, beautiful network, and we may as well use it the best we can. But it is essential to know that contributions do have to fit the show. So it will be a work in progress. Possibly the first thing you give us won't be the right fit, but we're really happy to work with you and try and work up and develop your skills and your ideas around what it is for The Wire.
So we did have some contributing stations a couple of years ago, and we had a great time with them. And we also got people who have worked on The Wire who've gone and lived in other cities but still bring us stories. Now, I'm just going to have a quick listen to three of these. Judith Peppard worked on The Wire. She's a 70-year-old former professor, and she just loves radio. And she did this story for us.
Remains uncertain. Judith Peppard has the story.
Wise old women know that children need protection, and when their governments fail, they need it ever more from us.
Pamela Kerr from the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, speaking at the rally organised by the Grandmothers Against the Refugee Children on treatment that children were receiving.
Okay, that's Judith, and you can see the power of a story that is on the spot and that's got angry people. We don't want too much angry people, but those grabs at the beginning are fantastic just to set the scene. There's people who really care about this issue. This next one is another older contributor who actually is around the station. He travels a lot, has a really interesting perspective on everything, Terry Houghton, and he did this story because he had a friend who knew the first guy to ever die in the Vietnam War, and it turned out to be a lovely story because we put some music with it too. So have a listen to this.
One of those was Errol Nunn, or The Boy Next Door, and began to turn his cousin. Here he talks to the...
He was a very personable character. He was very fit. We used to do a lot of running together. We were both very much into long-distance running.
Yeah, I've seen a photograph of him. He's athletic looking, muscular, isn't he? Bodybuilder.
Yes, he did a lot of bodybuilding too. He was a very fit athlete. He did some clothes modelling for Myers as well, just as another little part-time job. So, but he did...
So that was lovely. He missed the part of that music, but never mind. But yeah, that was a really lovely piece. And it was just a chat between Terry and this guy, but it was a great story, and it really highlighted a time that people have forgotten about, I think, and how absolutely horrible it was when those first bodies started to come back, and why there was such a fuss over the Vietnam War. And the last one was our correspondent from Alice Springs, Justin. He was with us for a couple of years, and he always brought really something different to a story. He's got a great style about him. Have a listen to this.
People are calling for support for the story.
Only in Sydney, only at Mardi Gras.
This weekend, more than 140 floats with over 10,000 marchers taking part in one spectacular celebration of diversity within our community. It's the 2015 Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. It's the parade that stops the city.
So that's a bit of Justin, and whatever story Justin did, he always made it sound really exciting and really important. So we used to play his stories to our volunteers here to sort of get the idea that that's what you, it doesn't matter how serious the story is, you can still present it with a bit of excitement in your voice. It was, yeah. And that's a great example of the kind of stuff you can get if there are other people outside of the newsroom contributing.
So I guess when you are thinking about pitching a story to us, or whether you've got something that you're interested in, is your story or our story, there's a few really important things that you need to maybe have a listen to and have a think about. Does it fit with the editorial policy that we outlined? So all those things that we ran through right at the top of the presentation today about representing different voices, giving something current, taking a story further. Have another read through that and have a just think about how you can fit it in there. Is it important and relevant to the diverse national audience that we're talking to? So are people going to want to know about it, or is it really just a very localised story that doesn't have that big reach? Do you have people to the story who are relevant to the story, who are contactable and are ready to talk? So they're two different things, and making sure that you can get them and they are happy to have a conversation with you about the issue is really important, and has two or more sides to it. Now, yes, we try and we endeavour to represent two sides of a story or all sides of a story, but with The Wire, we also are happy to represent an issue if it's well articulated, and we may not present both sides because maybe the other side is getting a lot of voice somewhere else. So again, this is just around having conversations with the producer of the show and just understanding, the background of the issue a little more to talk to us and talk around why perhaps you're just giving this one person that voice.
And it's also pretty noticeable these days. It's really hard to get through the thick walls of Canberra to get reaction to anything. We get a lot of one-line emails, as comment when we ask for a voice on a story or we ask for a minister. So, yeah, it gets more and more difficult. They're very much aware of what media they'll do, and they usually only do the stuff they have to, but we try. So the format and style that you need to fit in with, and this is the hardest thing for most people, can you tell a story in 3 to 5 minutes? But yes, you can. We either run a single interview, which will begin with the talent's voice. So you would write a cue sheet that led to their voice, introduce them, and then it would be a question answer, and we would never let people talk for too long without jumping in with a question. We want it to sound like a conversation. If you've got more skills than that or you want to learn, you can get 2 or more voices into a package and write the links, tell the story yourself, put the voices into it. That's a lot of fun to do, and of course you can also add things like music and sound effects, makes it even better. And you need to write something for the presenter that tells us what the story is, that presents the story to the program, within the program, and to the audience. So you need to get pretty good at writing in a nice, direct, upbeat way. And further down in this slideshow, we may not get to it today, but it's there for you to have a look at if you want. There's some good hints on writing a decent intro. So 3 parts is like 3 sentences, really, not too long. And yeah, talk to people. It's great practice for your writing. It's fantastic. But that's what we would expect to get from you. And we'd also, of course, need the info on who the person is and what their title is, because afterwards we sometimes get left not knowing who we're meant to be back announcing, which can be very disturbing indeed. So all those things, but that'll be in negotiation, as Sarah will talk about now.
So what you need to get started, it's sort of, you might feel like you're at a little loose end, but recorder and a microphone is great. Amazingly, phones nowadays actually can record some half decent audio. So don't be put off if you don't have a high-tech recorder or if your station doesn't. You can get out there and try and get audio. Obviously, if you're on the scene somewhere, if you're at a protest or you're at something with a lot of noise, capture that, but also ask the person you're interviewing to maybe step aside a little bit and speak one-on-one with you so that you have a more quiet environment, particularly if you are trying to use a phone. They do often pick up on all of the ambience. So just being aware of that. You will need to have some editing equipment to be able to cut it all together and an internet connection to send your audio over to us when it's ready to go.
And as far as editing goes, you probably all know, but Audacity is free, and Audition 30-day trials are available. So there's a lot of things to play with these days. And also with an iPhone, you can get a really good microphone these days to stick in the top of your iPhone. That makes a difference as well. Oh, so setting up a story. What is the story? What's the best way to tell it? We expect that you'll be talking to us about this. Who would you need to talk to? Who are the key people to talk to? And what do you think they're going to say? Always have some idea of what you expect to get from people, but be willing to be surprised as well. And when you interview them, a really nice direct style is good in an interview. Don't beat around the bush, because people will always react to you the way you talk to them. And if you want to find stuff out, just ask it and they'll probably just tell you. Whereas if you are too vague and sort of circuitous in your questioning, or you do the kind of questions where you offer them 3 answers to choose from, you probably get quite a floppy interview. But your mood, your interview style will set the scene for the interview.
Also, getting straight to the point does avoid you having 20 minutes of audio to cut into a very small piece, which is a very tough ask. So write to us if you're interested. I've noticed that Kate, for example, has just put a note up on the chat box here about a story. Would we have run a special on women in jail in, yes, we would certainly have done that. That is an amazing story. And look, if we could listen to it, we would need to listen to it. We would need to obviously have oversight on it and just maybe help with how to put it together. But it would certainly be something that we think, on the surface would fit. There might be reasons why it didn't run somewhere else. So, that is a discussion. We're more than happy to have these discussions, and that's why we're putting this out there. But anyway, pictures like that, send us either, if you've already done audio, tell us what you've done, and then talk to us about how you think it's engaging and interesting and would like to present that. Or just send us ideas. You've got this great idea. Great way to test a great idea is talk about it with a couple of friends. And if you are talking about it and get a few questions out about it in over a couple of minutes and can't stop and let it go, you're probably on something good. You're probably on something that we all want to hear about. So send us these ideas, either on the wire where I showed you the button on the home page, or give us a shout on our personal email addresses, which you see on the website where I pointed you to.
And maybe just keep in mind who does which day, because if you did have a sudden idea on a particular day, look at where's the wires coming from that day and ring that producer is the best, because we all only work 1 or 2 days a week across the week.
And we're generally planning our day from about 9:30 in the morning in the home state. So we do sort of need a heads up first thing, essentially, if you think it's something off the day. I think initially it probably will be thinking forward maybe about ideas, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, once we have got people that we're confident that you'll be able to produce something for us and turn it around, we're sure happy to have you give us a call or drop us an email first thing.
Yeah, so please don't be shy. Do ring us because we really would love to hear from you. And we can work together at a distance. You're as a freelancer, that's the way you do it. You know, your story, how it's going to fit the wire, how you do it. We'll help you as much as we can. We can do production at our end if you can't do it at your end, all those things. But yeah, please pick up the phone.
And the third point on this slide is, you know, we don't expect everyone to be able to shape up a whole story. But if you've got an idea with contacts and you want to hand it over to us, you just, by all means, we want to hear from you. So we're happy to put people onto that story. And then we're happy to even talk through afterwards how that all happened so that you can maybe put that in your toolkit and turn it around and think about using that next time that you've got a great idea. So there's lots of different ways to approach this, and we just really want to encourage you all to at least think about it.
So, yeah, I think we're saying the same thing here, but just ask us for help. Please do. We're happy to help, and we're really interested to have someone telling us a story from somewhere else, because a newsroom, exciting as it is, it becomes quite a sterile environment. The thing is, the deadlines are incredibly important, and obviously, as I said, you kind of set up a relationship if you're a freelancer and you're wanting to put ideas in there and get them worked into a story. So we'll be giving you feedback and support, but we will be looking for a story ultimately that's high quality, and we'll be working towards that.
What we do once you've given us a shout out and we've negotiated and agreed on a pitch, I think we sort of covered on what we get from you, but you'll get given essentially what is called a contributor checklist. And through that, it's a tick list to make sure you have jumped through all the hoops of what we need to make your story go to air, be online, look great, be shouted out in social media, connect correctly as best we can. So cue sheet and intro, you've possibly got one in your station, but it's got a headline, tells us how long the story is, has that engaging intro and the lead in and out so that we've got the back and outs and all the info we need. We need the file in WAV format. That's usually mono, but we have got an outline of all the details in the format. We use WeTransfer to transfer it over to the specific producer you've been working with. So be aware of upload and download times, but we try and make sure that one's a free and easy way to communicate. We get a rights-free image, so use Creative Commons. We don't want to get in any trouble for copyright, so we're very careful about this. And then the whole scope of other information that we just gather, which is about web and Twitter and Facebook content. And like Annie was saying before, making sure that we know the names and titles of everyone that you spoke to in your story. That's really important that we make sure we attribute them all the time.
And we've got a contributor checklist. We've got a form, so if you do become a regular contributor, you've got something to go on. It's easy to follow. Deadlines, well, they are the bane of our existence, but they're the things that make us produce good stuff. So we want to know how you're going. Don't just be silent and suddenly ring up at 3 o'clock and tell us that it's all fallen over or that you've got too much editing to do and you won't get there. So keep us in the loop as your story develops. And we do need the story at least 2 hours ahead of going to air, because we've got a lot of time juggling to do, making the show fit. The 25 minutes and 50 seconds is always a mathematical exercise, and also deciding what order, where your story is going to fit in the show. So we can't have the 5 minutes before we go to air scenario. That's too terrifying, especially these days when we have to set up a lot with our playout system. So yeah, deadlines always important.
Now we've attached to this presentation a whole heap of other relevant information that we would ask CBAA to share with you all so that you can get your hands on it. But we were aware that we're sort of asked to present for half an hour and then take questions so we can have a chat and really break down anything you want. But I'll just very quickly flick you through the pages so you know what we're giving you. And there's just things on different sources of audio, so sound effects and links, little short news grabs that you might be able to find online or on YouTube, for example, different sources of audio. You just don't know. You've got film trailers, sounds of the people around you. Use VoxPots. Talk to the people in your station. And then you can pull it all together with links here to different software that we were talking about before. And he's made sure that we can do that. You can get out in the store field and basically a little bit here on intro, so a bit of a guide on what we're looking for, how to make it really interesting and catchy. I know I've just flown through that, but that is just a little toolkit for you rather than something we're going to talk to tonight.
Oh, I didn't mean to give you the bum's rush with that one. Feel free to take a bit more time if you'd like. We do have some questions coming through, but if there's any of that you've just gone through that you'd like to sort of discuss in a bit more in depth, please feel free to do so.
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just that I think with audio, we're all into audio, we wouldn't be here. If you really think widely about all the sound that you can use, and I think that's the real charm of getting a story from outside the newsroom is, we send our poor journalists out into the streets and make them talk to strangers all the time just so we can get the sound of the real world outside. And that's the greatest thing. If you're somewhere else, think of all the sounds that make that place what it is, whether it be traffic, whether it be birds, whatever, and somehow incorporate them into your story if you can.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'll shout out a few of the questions to you right now. Dylan Storer, CBAA award winner Dylan Storer. How you going, mate? He asked the question, can The Wire be rebroadcast on a community station that is not a subscriber of CRN? I might just take this time here to talk about how stations around Australia access The Wire for local broadcast via the CRN National Service, which distributes a range of programs, including the National Radio News, Good Morning Country and the National Features and Documentary Series. It's available live via satellite, Monday to Friday at 5:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and is repeated each night just after midnight Eastern Time. If stations want to broadcast it at a different time from those two options, that's easy too. They can opt to receive the Daily Wire audio file from CRN in a number of ways, including the digital delivery network for stations that use that service. This delivery can be automated into stations' local playout systems, so it goes to air automatically. But if your station is not broadcasting the Wire and interested in using it, please contact the Community Radio Network on how you can put it live to air or on delay. So while we sort of don't want to put up barriers for people to access the Wire, we do understand that we've got to sort of protect our brand here with the Community Radio Network, and we know that the Wire is one of the flagship programs for the CRN. So I hope you guys don't mind me jumping in and answering that one, and I hope that's all right.
What on that subject, I know one particular station, and I think others do it as well, Byron Bay Blue, is it Bay FM? Bay FM. For years they've used the Wire in their own way, like they'll take a story from the Wire and pop it in another program, one of their news programs. I'm just wondering, is that legal?
That might be one. Dylan, what I might do is I might get Martin Walters from the CRN to give you a chat about that, because it's one of those sort of things where obviously the CRN's very important to us. Got to protect that brand, and but we've also got to balance that up with the fact that we want everyone in the sector to be able to access high quality news and current affairs content. These things can be worked out, probably not by me now though, I'd suggest. But Dylan, let me stay on the case for that one. And Cynthia Keith asked a very similar question. Can your archived audio be replayed on another community station? I imagine there's sort of not only issues with copyright involved with that, but also due to the timeliness, because the fact that it's sort of a news and current affairs program and it's responding and reacting to the news of the day, archived content, while in some cases might be useful, it's probably one of those things you've got to be a bit careful with using.
Yeah, I think we need to check on that one.
Yeah, I think we might need to get a placeholder on that one and inquire, because some of the historical, I mean, the importance is to not use historical audio that has gone beyond its time.
But at the same time, if it was an anniversary, there might be a great story done 5 years ago that you could replay.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the situation is with repurposing the audio on the Wire. We occasionally get asked if someone wants to put it on their website, put their one of the stories up on a separate outside website, not community radio. We don't have a problem with that, as long as we know who it is and what they're using it for. So yeah, we probably need to check on all that.
Curly ones. These are good questions we're getting, but obviously we will follow up with all of our participants here with sort of emails for the recording of this evening's webinar, as well as links to all the stuff that I've been talking about. Obviously, Annie and Sarah brought up Audacity as an audio editing program. It's fantastic, and there will be a CBAA webinar in about 6 weeks' time that is going to use Audacity, plus ones we've done in the past where you sort of introductory courses to Audacity, and the one coming up in about 6 weeks is a bit more of a professional usage of that one. So watch this space. Annie and Sarah, how important is it for audio to be in WAV form as opposed to MP3, asks Mia from Bay FM.
Well, at the moment, the playout system will only play it out for us in WAV form. Is that not right, Sarah?
That's right. We can transfer MP3 audio back to WAV. Obviously,
but we lose
it's
quality.
Lost quality already. So if the sound is worth it, if the story's worth it, we certainly can do a workaround. Obviously, ultimately, it's important to get the stories out there. So if that's all you can record in, if that's all you can deliver, then we'll be able to work around it.
Just use the highest res possible. That's all.
Yeah.
But you're aware with MP3, every single time you edit it, you lose quality. That's the problem with it.
Yeah. Would you suggest that if it's just sort of the actual content would sort of impact upon that? Like I say, if it's just dialogue, just someone speaking, the loss in audio quality wouldn't matter as much as sort of if it was more a piece where the ambient sound that was with it was really sort of creating the atmosphere there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just a spoken Q&A, well edited, it still does lose a bit of richness, but as I say, we certainly can work around it for good content.
Excellent.
Just that layout system, which wasn't the case before, we used to be able to play MP3s, but now we have to have a WAV file. So we'd always have to convert it back to the actual program.
We could probably do a whole webinar on different audio files and all of the stuff. Eliza Burlage, so great to see Eliza in the audience. How are you? Great question from her. How far ahead of time would you want pitch ideas? For example, do you accept on the day and turn around as well as longer lead stories? And if so, how do you manage the timeline of delivery?
Okay, I guess the important thing is first making contact with us in advance, so that, and give us maybe if you're wanting to do on the day stories, that's great, but we'd want a bit of an example of your work. We'd want to be closely in contact with you on the day to understand how you're going and how it's all coming together. Ultimately, once we've developed a relationship with you and understand the kind of work you do and that you are fitting within the brief, then we'd be quite happy to build that up and have that rolling as often as you like. But I guess the important thing is we will be relying on that piece of audio at the end of the day. So if we get delivered at 2 hours ahead of the show and it isn't the right fit for the show and isn't going to be, we end up with a hole. So it's an important conversation. We need to have the conversation, I guess. We need to understand your work. We need to have a listen and be confident that we're going to get it across the line at the end of the day, which is fine. We're hoping that everyone can get to the point that can happen, but just we need to know these things.
Having said that, though, if there was some big event happening in your town and you are a beginner, we are happy to, and you've got something to record on, we're happy to give you a few hints over the phone and send you off to that, because all that would require is some ambient sound and to talk to someone there, which we could even set up for you. So that'd be a great thing for us to have you in place on the day that some event was happening. So you would be our reporter on the spot. And I think with almost no experience, that would be a great starting point.
And with longer term stories, I mean, the sooner you can tell us about it, the sooner you can be gathering story content and working to make it the best piece you can. We love people doing longer term, well produced stories that they've really thought about. So we're very, very welcoming of that.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. Mia raises the point that surely a solid producer / journalist would know the importance of timeliness and would judge accordingly in regards to the use of archive programming. Very good point. Cynthia Keith and Kate Pinnock both sort of have, I guess, queries for you that might sort of be best to be discussed offline, just in regards to, taking sections of the program. Cynthia does a mind, body and health program, and of course Kate is behind the wonderful Jailbreak program, and I'm sure there's room there for crossover on that one. So hopefully this webinar will be the first connection between all of you guys in regards to sharing your story ideas. For all that.
Yes, and we will definitely look into that audio, that content. Everything's available on the website in an MP3 version, and I think there was an understanding that to some degree for the community broadcasting association and all of our stations, it was available. But we just need to work out, obviously, the important things, that we're not stopping on anyone's toes at CRN to make sure that it certainly can be authorised.
Yeah, but I think it's really exciting to set up relationships with people who do specialist programs.
Oh, yes.
Like that. That's great because, I think you can use us and we can use you. It could be very useful.
And look, we have reporters that love that idea of digging deep into rounds and into key interest areas as well that might just want to have a chat to you. So, yeah, this is something we can certainly work with.
Excellent. And I hope you guys don't mind. I took control of the screen there because I just wanted to bring up the Wire website for everyone to have a look at it who wasn't already aware of it, and just so they can go through there. And how far back do you guys have stuff archived?
Well, I think we had to take a couple of years of sound off, but I think back to about 2006 we've still got the actual sound.
Jeez.
After that it's just the stories. It's pretty exciting. It's the archive. When we changed websites, that was the thing we insisted, was we kept our archive because it's so useful. It's amazing.
It was a labour of love going back through so many years of content and making sure that it was all organised so that we can have it be useful. But it's such a resource, it would have been terrible to lose it.
And we can see who we spoke to or who someone else spoke to. So, you can gather talent on a particular topic just by putting that topic in and then going back and just seeing everybody's been spoken to over several years. It's like a resourceful way to use, because we work so hard to make radio and it's so ephemeral. So it's really good to have it there as a resource.
Is it there? Is it there on the National Film and Sound Archive?
I don't know. We should talk to them, shouldn't we?
I'll get you a contact there at the National Film and Sound Archive because I reckon this would be perfect for this. Mia's just stating that for the record she never uses more than 2 stories per week. That's all right. Take that one offline. And getting other interviews on marine park protection laws, for example. And the Byron Bay area, obviously the people there in regards to keeping the oceans clean, doing so much great work, and great to see Mia using the platform of Bay FM to continue that great work. Good on you. We received some great stuff from Bay FM today in regards to promotion for what they're going to be doing for their winter series of broadcasting. So keep up the great work there at Bay FM. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone's questions. If anyone's got any other questions that I haven't covered or ones that I've forgotten, if you could pop them into the text box now, that would be absolutely wonderful because sometimes I do miss out on things. Also, while I have your attention here on my screen, Audacity, free download. It is a fantastic program. It used to just be one track, but now it's multi-track, I believe, so you can sort of start putting together really professional sounding pieces on it. Free open source cross-platform audio software. It's really quite wonderful. Kate asks, is it better than Adobe Audition? Oh, I wouldn't know. I'd say Adobe Audition.
Sorry, it's not. No.
We'll jump in there and
say
no.
Audacity does the job, but Adobe's just a beautiful, smooth program to work with.
And Adobe, sorry, go on.
You can get a 30-day trial, which is always a good way to check it out. And also, if you're a student of any kind, you can get the whole Adobe suite really cheap. Does everybody know that?
Yes, because Adobe now is you like re-up on the license, don't you? Sort of pay annually.
Yeah, you used to but now you have to have a bit like Netflix, paying it every month. But yeah, it's about a quarter the price if you are a student of any kind.
And Mia also asks about Hindenburg. That's a radio audio editing software. There's been representatives of Hindenburg who have attended our conference. It's sort of a DAW or digital audio workstation that is made specifically for broadcasts, radio and podcasts. It's all made by audio journalists for audio journalists. Have you guys had any experience with that, Sarah and Annie?
No, I never seen it actually.
I had a bit of a play with it. I did the NSDS a year and a half ago, and I found it a really interesting package. I did really enjoy it. I think it's one of those things. I've used Audition here in the station, but if I'd never used it either, it would genuinely be a a toss-up between them both. I think it is a really good program.
Yeah, and they're friends of community radio too, the people there at Hindenburg. The only sort of real downfall I can find with that system is that when you try and Google it, you just end up with footage of Zeppelins that are on fire. People have noted that, Eliza noted you can claim Adobe on your tax, and Tanya has said that they've got discounts for university students. I remember in regards to CMTO. CMTO is using Hindenburg. Sorry, what were you guys going to say?
Oh no, I was saying if you're a student, you get a massive discount on Adobe. The trouble with Adobe now is you have to get the whole suite, which is kind of fun, but you don't necessarily want the whole suite. Whereas Hindenburg, can you just get the audio?
Yeah, it's just all that.
Yeah, which would be cheaper, I imagine.
Yeah, have a bit of a look at that. And Eliza also talks about a program called Reaper, which is one that I've used. It is one of those ones where you get a free trial of it as well. It's very similar to Pro Tools. It gives you the opportunity, so if you've sort of got your audio editing plugins, it'll read those. But it's one of those things where it's sort of multi-track, similar to Pro Tools, I think non-destructive. I don't know, but it's not a bad little thing. And Reaper, there is a free trial for it, and it's also fairly cheap if you do decide that you want to purchase that. Eliza said you can buy Audition separate, so maybe you don't need to buy the whole Adobe thing. But then again, how good would it be to have?
I lost it, and then I just had to sign up for the whole suite. So I didn't really look hard enough.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously the other things that are available with that, which is your Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that, there's applications for use for that on your station's website, so on and so forth, and sort of any other sort of promotion stuff you might want to do.
While we're doing product placement here, can I just put a plug in? If anybody hasn't got a recorder and doesn't want to use their phone, one of my recorders is this really cheap Zoom I got, which is about $100, which is a fabulous little thing to, if you're going away somewhere and you don't want a heavy recorder with you. Yeah, it's great. Really good audio quality. You can plug in an outside mic to it, but I'd recommend that.
What? Sorry,
bottom of the range.
What was
Zoom?
The name? Oh, Zoom, of course. Oh, and that'd be like the handheld recorder.
This is the tiny little cheapest one they've got. Takes a little mini card in it, but it's really good, actually. Surprisingly good.
Yes, we've got a couple of Zoom recorders here at the CBAA. They're very good for doing the Vox Pops. You'll sort of, I don't know if you can see the images that are on there now. I'm trying to wait for the website to open, but it's got the two microphones in there, so you get a sort of stereo input.
No,
absolutely.
For a cheap one, it's fun.
Yeah, you don't need to go for the H4, H5s. They're quite heavy duty, so it's just the lowest of the range is the one Annie's talking about, but it's a really neat fits in the bag convenient thing. So if you go to a festival or you're traveling, it's just the kind of thing that doesn't add weight too much.
Excellent. A few questions there in regards to the other audio software. So, I mean, plenty of stuff out there that is really cheap or often free with which you can make professional audio. So there's the tools there, and I know for a fact that in the sector we certainly have the talent. I put a link in there before when you guys referenced the Community Radio Broadcasting Codes of Practice. I'll just link that to everyone there again. They're always a bit of useful knowledge to have. Lord knows I refer to them pretty much every day of my professional life. The codes are under review at the moment. There are new versions of the codes. Should be out very, very soon. If there's no other questions, I might get to wrapping that up. Sarah and Annie, thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Our pleasure.
With your permission, I might sort of, over the course of the next few days, I'll get a copy of your presentation, if that's all right, as well as send out links to all of our registrants for this evening's webinar, along with a recording of tonight's webinar. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday, 2nd of May. Obviously, usually we have our webinars on the last Wednesday of the month, but the last Wednesday of the month, which is next Wednesday, is also Anzac Day, so obviously we won't be having the session then. But Wednesday, 2nd of May, Safe Stations, what you need to know about preventing sexual harassment at your station. That's going to be presented by the Victorian Trades Hall, who do some absolutely fantastic work. And if you see there on the registration page, I've got a couple of resources that are there available, and would very much urge everyone to have a look at that. We think it's going to be a really valuable session, and I very much look forward to being part of an organisation that's spreading that sort of knowledge there to the wonderful community broadcasting sector. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thanks also, big thanks to Annie and Sarah. I'm not in for the rest of the week, but I'll be calling you early next week to say thank you so much for giving us your time and knowledge in regards to this, and I certainly hope that as a result of this, you're getting more and more content sent to you. It's a great show, The Wire.
We're waiting. We're on standby.
And the contact details there. Just click on the contact tab on The Wire.
I just want to jump in here and note so everybody knows that Emma Lancaster is no longer the producer for the Sydney edition of The Wire. That's Roderick Chambers. I'll update that as soon as we're offline, because I thought I'd done so, but I will make sure that the right info is there.
Oh, how embarrassing. I think Roderick was in the session this evening.
Oh, Rod, I'm going to be in trouble.
No. If I know Rod, the R in Rod also stands for revenge, so look out. That'd be great. And of course, Peter O'Weeder is no longer the 4EB contact. That's very new news. I imagine Joe Pratt would be the person there now, or Stephen Regal. Yeah, that's the sector. Everyone's always moving about. Look at all those great stations who are contributing as part of it. Excellent. All right then. Well, with all of that information, we'll update everyone who's attended here this evening. Sarah and Annie, thank you once again for being part of this. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending this evening. On behalf of the Community Media Training Organisation and the CBAA, I'll let you all get on out of here and enjoy your evening. I did before bring up a slide in regards to the 2018 CBAA conference, and I was like, I wonder if I can let people know where it's going to be. I can. It's going to be at the Gold Coast Convention Centre, which you probably would have seen on the telly last week when the Australian women's netball team was robbed by the Poms there in the last second of that game. So we'll have to wait another 4 years for revenge on that one. All right, thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Annie and Sarah. We'll talk to you all again real soon.
Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye.